Mathanal. We are from India. We have been serving we have serving many companies across the world in the domain of supply chain analytics since 7 years. Prior to opening my own company, I used to work for various consulting and software development firms. And so since 2016, I am into this business of supply chain analytics running by myself. So guys, actually I'm coming live almost every month, 3 or 4 times, just to show how analytics can be helping. So in the pursuit of the same effort, today I'm going to bring some very basic stuff on how to work on the planning, work on the production planning side, and how to use the solver in actually taking the variable and creating an organized production plan. So guys, this is a very important session. This is a very helpful session. If you learn how to actually do the calculations, how to apply the numbers, how to actually do and what are the objectives, variables we need to work with this. This is going to be very helpful session. So please have a look. Please be with me, and if you have any question, post the questions on the social media you're watching, and I'll be coming back with my replies. So guys, I'll be sharing my screen. So please have a very good look at this, and please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask the questions, and I'll be definitely answering those all questions to you. So guys, you are able to screen, and this is a screen which is important screen, and you will bring these kind of situations in your supply chain. So if you look at the screen, and this is a very familiar screen for all supply professionals. If you look at, we have a demand on the left hand side. This is a demand. We have a demand in January. This demand is a forecasted demand. So if you look at January is like February 45,000 units, March is 35,000 units. This is demand for the for the product. So right now we are not specifically talking about any product. This is simple a demo. So you can take any product. For example, if you don't call up bottle, or you want to talk, a smartphone, take any name, or you can take any can give any name to the product over here. But the point is that the name doesn't matter. What matters is the algorithm, right? So here, if you see the demand for the 12 months, January to December, and we have this demand, and if I do a simple calculation here, I'll apply it. What is total demand here? Total demand for the 12 months. I'll just apply a formula from the Excel, and this is 5,05,500 units demand. And I want to calculate the average of the average demand per month. I'm going to use the formula average from the Excel, and I think you guys must be very fan formula, because these are very quite common formulas which we apply on a regular basis in Excel, right? So this is per month the average demand on 41,800, right? And I'll just find the variability, and if I have to find the demand variability, I have to apply standard deviation, and it's also a very common formula in supply chain. So this standard deviation dot s, because this is small sample, it's not total population, so I'm going to use the form stdv dot s, and this gives me 13,094. And if I count variability percentage, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide the standard deviation by the average, and this gives me around 33%. So the variability factor, the variability in demand, is almost 33% of the average, which is not very high. This is a very reasonable variation we can expect. So, right. So this is a simple a descriptive part of the forecasted demand which we have done the study. Okay. So I think there are a lot of studies are required, but from the current demo perspective or correct perspective, too many actions other than the average total standard deviation and the coefficient of variation, right? So this is the coefficient of the variation. Now is that I'm going to go inside metrics. And if you look at here, these are metrics. Before we start the new the current year or maybe the future year, uh, optimization, we need to know how much is the ending inventory in the month of December. Suppose here, let's say year 2022. So what's the ending inventory at the time of December 2021? So that is the initial inventory, means this is the ending inventory at the end of December 2021, and we are going to start our projections or analysis from January 2022. So when I start my my production plan, so I need to consider that I have some inventory left from the previous year. What is the inventory left from the previous year? That is 10,000 units. So we need to consider these units because we should factor this, because we should not overproduce, because we already have 10,000 units left from the previous year. What we need to do is that we should over those 10,000 units. That's why we need to take the previous inventory into account. If we do not take the previous inventory into account, then we are going to overproduce, and if we do the overproduction, is going to cost us money, right? This is going to cost us inventory holding cost, and we don't want to create additional cost. So if you want to avoid the additional cost, into the previous inventory left, that is 10,000 units, which we already have. Now if you look at the material cost, it is $5 per unit. The desired ending inventory is 10,000 units. At the what we are also defining here, the desired ending inventory. So at the end of December 2022, how much inventory I want to have. So I should not have more inventory. I should not have less inventory. I need to define how much inventory I should be left with. So I need to only, after selling everything, after selling all the products, I need to have a 10,000 units inventory at the end of my December 22 current financial year, right? And we are saying that beginning backlog. The beginning backlog means, suppose if we have some customers whom we have to supply the order, right? If we have to supply the order, if we have some order to be supplied pending, then we will put some quantity over here. But if you look at the beginning backlog, means we have fulfilled all the orders of the previous year till December 2021. So we don't have any backlog. Backlog means how much inventory how much of the sales we have to do, or which are pending. Means if suppose we have a sales order, so we have a sales order means we have to deliver it. So if we have any pending sales order, if we don't have any pending sales order, means we will not have a backlog. So we are saying zero. Stock out cost for this, right? If suppose if any stock out is happening backlog, means we have a pending order, but we do not have the inventory in our warehouse. If we do not, it means we have a stock out, and every stock out will have a cost, because customers are going to charge a penalty for us, right? And if customers don't charge so penalty for us, that is about $3.5 per unit per month. Now inventory holding costs. So if we have an excess inventory, suppose we are saying we want to have 10,000 units. If you have something, uh, if you have any excess inventory, then that will also be costable. That is $0.10 per unit per month. Okay. At the beginning, of course, we are going to take 10 workers. Means suppose we are starting our production today. Today we have a factory. We have, so how many workers we need to start with, right? So if we need additional workers, we're going to hire those additional workers. If we have too many additional workers, we're going to lay off, or we're going to keep them stagnant. Generally, we are going in this model. We are considering that if we have an extra or additional workers, we're going to lay off them. Okay. So the hiring and firing, we are going to both the aspects. Initially, the new financial year, we're going to start our workers. We're going to start with number of workers as 10. So what is suppose if you hire a new worker, what additional cost? That is $400. If you are hiring you're hiring a new workers, you have to train them, and you're going to spend $400 per worker on that. If you are laying off the cost, means if you are removing any employees from the company, so laying off cost is $550 per worker. If you are, suppose if you have a production capacity, and if your production capacity is uh, you know uh, then you have to go, if you give it to give the order to some other manufacturer, and then subcontracting. So here, if your capacity is full and you do not have do not have space, or do not have the time to manufacture the additional order, then you are going to be subcontracting, and that is $8.85 per unit. Okay, the regular wage rate means, if you're there's two kinds of wage. One is the overtime, and another is a wage regular time. So suppose the total work times is 8 hours, total working time per day is 8 hours, and so that is $15 per hour. And in case if you are asking employees to overstay beyond 8 hours, then per hour you have to pay $22.5 per hour. You have to pay twice as an overtime rate. In a month, there are 25 days. Every day we have to have 8 hours to work for. Maximum labor overtime labor hours means a worker can only work 20 hours per worker per month. And so we cannot give more than 20 hours to a worker to work overtime per month. Okay, labor times required. So labor hours required. So 0.25 hours per unit. So if the labor hour is, if a labor is working, he can produce per hour 0.25 units. Okay, 0.25 hours per unit. So these are the important data which we are actually bringing up over here. And if you look at the regular time production rate is 2,400 hours, 400 per worker. Regular time labor cost is 9,000 per worker per month. Overtime rate is 80 per worker per month. And the current overtime capacity is 800 units per month. So this is data which is very important, and we take these variables into account when we do our production planning, because production planning includes the volume, but also the time and the cost, as well as the revenue and the profits. Right? We are working on various dimensions like the cost, the time, the volume, the revenue, the profits. Right? We take into account. So in this example, we are going the production cost optimization. So how to optimize the cost? That is what we are going to take into this particular demo. And we are going to use solver. If you don't know about solver, let me suggest what is solver. When you go to data on the ribbon, and then on the right hand side you see solver over here. Okay, you can see my cursor. The solver, if you click on the solver, see this is a solver where you have to define your objective, whether you want to maximize the cost or minimize the cost. Generally in supply chain we do the cost minimization. So we are going to apply cost minimization. So this is the cost minimization. Right? When we have changed variable cells, what are the variable cells we need to change so that we get the best output? And these are the constraints. What are the constraints have, so that suppose we have option, right? Production capacity. There is a capacity for production. We cannot go beyond a capacity, because we cannot produce unlimited volume of products. We have a defined capacity. So we have to define our production capacity. We have to define our inventory capacity. We have to define labor hours capacity, and our over capacity. We have to define our inventory balance capacity. So there are so many constraints are there, because we cannot work on the high cost, high production capacity. We have to define our limits. Whatever limits we have to define them in this constraint. And finally, we have to set our method. What kind of method we're going to use to solve this problem. And this is how we are going to. This is a very important part of our, the production planning optimization or aggregate planning optimization. We need to have a right definitions of our objective, of our variables, of our constraints, and where we need to put our formulas is also a very important aspect in defining our problem. So let's go directly into the problem. So first thing, I'll define my inventory balance. Okay, I'll define my inventory. So before inventory balance, let's also define our other variables. So these are the decision variables, like how many work require per month, how many additional, how many layoffs I have to do per month, how many overtime hours I require per month, right? What is the ending inventory per month? What is the backlog per month? What is subcontracting per month? What is the production volume per month? We have already discussed about what is backlog, ending inventory, what is layoff, what is hiring, what is, we have already discussed all these aspects. Now directly go into defining all these concepts. Okay, so there are two strategies which we have to follow, or maybe three strategies, or you can also come up with your own strategy. The strategy which we're going to use over here is, we call it chase strategies. Chase. Chase means we are going to chase whatever your forecast. We are going to chase our forecast. Means we are going to meet our forecast. If our forecast is 50,000 units, I'm going to chase my forecast. My production will be equivalent to forecast. Okay. So so here what I'm doing, I'm chasing my forecast. That's why I call is chase strategy. Means I'm chasing the forecast and want to meet my forecast. Whatever forecast is given by forecast sales team, the production will just follow the particular forecast. That is called chase strategy. So if I say my chase strategy to create my production, which will be equivalent to my forecast. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to define here my chase strategy. So my production will be equal to forecast. That is strategy. So means I am going to guess will be 4. This is what I am defining over here. So the first cell is B30. B30 is what? This is the one, January demand. What is the second cell? It is B31. 31 is what? It's my, so my chase, I'm going to follow whatever is my forecast. So there is my production. Okay. I'm also going to define that I will be having zero subcontracting, zero backlog, and zero overtime. Right. So these are the other constraints which I am going to define. So even if I have to define subcontracting, so what is the formula which I am going to follow for subcontracting? Right. If my production capacity, if my forecast is more than production capacity, if my forecast is more than production capacity, then I'm going to give subcontracting. So let's write the formula here. If my forecasting minus production, if this is 0 here, then there is no subcontracts. There is no subcontracting. If it is more than 0 here, and so for example, if my production volume is 40,000 and my forecast is 50,000, right? So what is the subcontracting? That is 50,000, 40,000. That will become 10. So this 10,000 will be my sub. Means this is beyond my production capacity. My forecast is more than production capacity. If my forecast is more than production capacity, then I have to give to subcontracting. Or the second solution is that I have to give it for overtime. There are two options. If my forecast is more than production, then I have to give either for subcontracting, or I have to increase my overtime hours. So I have two decisions to make. So what I'm saying here is my forecast and production are same, then I don't need any subcontracting, nor I need overtime. So my two formulas are suggesting that I should not have any subcontracting, any overtime. Right? Now, backlogging. If I am not, see, the initial backlog is 0, and and I'm able to meet all the forecasts with the production. If I'm able to meet all the forecasts with production, my backlog will also be zero, right? If I'm not subcontracting, if I'm not giving overtime to backlog, if I'm not subcontracting the overtime, then this will go into backlog. Since in this particular case, we have three scenarios. Our forecast is equal to production. It means there is no subcontracting required. There is no overtime required. Similarly, there will be no backlogs also, because our forecast is equal to production and we are able to make everything within the capacity. And if anything goes beyond the capacity, we can either go to subcontracting or we can go to overtime. So since all the three scenarios are not being required here, so the backlog will also be equal to zero, right? It's a very interesting scenario, right? So forecast is equal to production, so we don't require subcontracting, we don't require overtime. Since we don't the product forecast is equal to production, subcontracting is also not required, overtime is also not required, backlog is also zero. Since the backlog is low, subcontracting is not required, overtime is not required. So what we do, we go into check to understand whether we need to hire these or we need to lay off the. For that, we're going to check inventory. Let's calculate the. So what we are suggesting here, if you have to calculate the inventory, first I will, how much is the ending inventory, right? So first I go and understand the production, how much production I'm going to do, how much subcontracting I'm going to do. Okay, then how much backlog to I have to supply minus, and how much is my forecast. Once again, my production, this is my subcontracting, this is my ending inventory, this is my backlog, and this is my forecast. If you look at the ending inventory is 10,000. So we are also defining it by a formula. Means whatever I produce, it goes in inventory. Whatever is already present, that's ending inventory of previous year, it goes into the is remaining in the inventory. Contract that also will be into inventory. So production plus subcontract plus these are the plus factors which are going to add up the inventory. Whatever like forecast. Forecast is for the sales. Whatever is backlog, I have to supply to the customers, subtract it. So production plus subcontract plus ending inventory minus backlog minus forecast. That is what we are going to apply here. This is my ending inventory. So this is my calculation which I have done, and I'm going to use this calculation as constraints for my decision variables in the solver. Now I'll calculate other constraints. First I'll calculate how much workforce I require per month. So the previous workforce is 10 plus I'm going to, if I hire any new employees, that will be taken into account. If I remove any employees, that will be subtracted. This is my formula which I'm going to apply as a constraint for workforce. So how much workforce are required for each month, right? If I look at the formula, January I'm seeing 10 employees. Then I'm going to see how many employees I've hired in the month of February. Then I'm going to also in the month of February. It's going to give me the number of workforce, right? Now second thing is I'm going to calculate the production capacity. So production capacity is the into number of workforce into the regular time production rate, right? Per worker per month. That is 2,400. I'm going to freeze this because I'm going to use the same formula. Now, if we have any overtime, if we have any overtime, so this overtime divided by what is overtime? 0.25 hours per unit. So this is going to give me production capacity, the number of workers for each month into their regular production output, that is 2,400 per worker per month, plus the overtime. If I have overtime hours, so how many units I will provide, will produce in that particular hours. So that is, if you look at 0.25 hours per unit, so overtime hours divided by 0.25 hours per unit gives the total overtime production. So this is what I have to use for production capacity. Right? Now we're going to calculate our overhead and inventory balance. So let's first see inventory balance. What is inventory balance? Inventory balance means the net, the net inventory balance after in and out. Right? The net inventory balance after in and out. That's what we are going to calculate. So let's calculate that. So I'll use a formula. So production plus subcontracting plus inventory plus current backlog minus the previous backlog minus the forecast. We're taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so production plus subcontract plus ending inventory minus previous backlog plus. Okay, so this is my formula for the inventory balance. What I'm doing here is that I'm going to add the production plus subcontract, okay, minus backlog of previous year plus backlog of current year minus plus inventory year minus inventory of current year plus the forecast. So minus forecast. This is our going to balance. And I'm going to calculate the production capacity, the overtime over limit hours. overtime limit hours, right? So this is the model which we have created based upon the inventory balance, overtime limit, production capacity, workforce size, and then we also calculated our production, how much production we need to do per month based upon the chase strategy, what is subcontracting limit based upon the chase strategy, what is backlog, what is overtime, what is the laid off, what is the hire, right? Now let's do the calculation for the hiring. Suppose if we have an additional inventory, then what we have to do is we need to if we have additional inventory, we don't need to hire. If we have lesser inventory, then we need to hire, right? If we have a lesser inventory, then we need to hire. That is the logic we have. Suppose if we have an extra inventory, why should I hire? I have sufficient inventory with me. If I do not have extra inventory, then I have to do the production, right? Based upon that, we are doing the calculation for the hiring and the laying off. Okay. So here, if you look at here, O30 is this, and if it is more than zero, if it is more than zero, right? We need to say this is R30. R30 is we have inventory here, so 50. So we have an additional inventory here. If we have an additional inventory, then we need to let me write the formula once again. So if we have an additional inventory more than zero, then we don't need to hire anything. If we don't have additional inventory, then we need to hire, divided by 2400. That is this. So in this case, we don't. Same thing, we are going to apply the formula here. If it is more than zero, then we need to hire. We will laid off. So here we are seeing example, if it is more than zero, then we have 0, or less than 0, then we minus. What is saying, if the inventory is more than 0, then we need to lay off. If the inventory is less than 0, means we have to hire. So now let's move into the solution, and the solution is I'm going to move the solver. I will define for the fresh. So to minimize the cost, this is my cost. Everything so that we can define it from the beginning. The first thing is we need to have the inventory balance 0. The most important. Second thing, what we want is we want our closing inventory. We want our ending inventory equal to 10,000. That's all we have defined. Third thing, we have to define that we have to, these two should be equal to 0. Our backlog and subcontracting has to be equal to 0. We also define that overtime has also to be equal to 0. Okay, and our production, this has to be equal should be less than equal to test. And our these three parameters, these four parameters, just a minute, I have to add some. Yeah, so I have to also define that this all values has to be integer. I have to do one more check before we solve. With this, I have to link all this with this over here. So let's try to solve the problem. So it is taking some time to do the calculation, but we need to be patient over here. So once the solution is already finally pop up. So I think we have another 10-15 minutes left in the session. So before that, if you have any questions, I just suggest you post the questions to my window here, and I'll come back with my replies. And this is, guys, is a very very important part which most of they might be doing a lot of innovations and extra additions on this, or they might be doing in some other way. But the approach, what the important thing is the approach, right? The approach which we have to take into account is something like to this. And the most important thing in this in this kind of analysis is what we define into the solver, right? What is our objective? What is our constraint? What are the decision variables? How you structure those decision variables? How you structure the constraints? and how many simulations you are prepared to do, how many simulations are required. That is what the most beautiful thing. Sometimes what happens is decision makers wants to try different kind of solutions, and for that because in business we encounter different kind of scenarios, business scenarios. So when we encounter different kind of business scenarios, right, we have to come up with different kind of simulations. When we do those simulation, different kind of simulations, right, then we'll come to know. Then we'll come to know, yes, what is the right way to go. So that is the most challenging part. If you are working on this kind of solutions, right? So the most challenging part is what kind of simulations we have to work with, what kind of scenario, what kind of challenges we are going to encounter with. So those are the most important part. So before I suggest my solution, I will the solution is ready now. Solution is what we have got now. So what we are saying is the total cost is 25 million 77,000 33. So 25.77 million what we are getting addition, and we have achieved inventory balance which is zero, right? And this is what the total production units which is being suggested by solver means we have to total revenue is around 25 million, right? So this is what the solution which is suggested by this solver. This is what the ending inventory, this is what the overtime was, because we have defined zero, we have defined the contracting zero, we have defined our overtime zero, we have defined our so layers are coming zero here, and hiring number of hiring workers per month is adding up additionally one. We got total cost is 5 millions, total revenue is this much, and total profit is 83 millions. So I have chosen cost minimization as an objective. You can profit maximize as an objective, and you will be coming up with all these figures. The most important thing is inventory balance. We don't want any inventory to be left. Right? The inventory balance is the most important aspect of a solution. So this is what the constraint I've set, and we have achieved those things. And we are below the production capacity. If you look at the first one, we have the production capacity. So we need to see what we are actually trying to solve. Okay, so I'm going to add one more constraint here, and let's see what happens with that. I'm going to define my production to be less than equal to the production capacity. I'm going to put additional condition here, and with this additional condition, let's see what we're going to get. See, if I'm adding one more simulation here. Now the simulation is that whatever suppose we have to meet whatever is the forecast, but also I'm going to suggest one more aspect is that I'm going to put my production capacity, whatever production capacity I have, right? I should not go beyond that. With that particular condition, what we're going to see. So this is a sheet, if aggregate planning sheet. Here you can add n number of simulations. You can generate n number of solver solutions, right? And once you aggregate those solver solutions into one particular template, and then based upon those scenarios and the outcomes, you can choose your. So one thing is that our constraints are not getting satisfied, right? We are not able to achieve the or we are not able to achieve a solution or production capability. We have the production lesser than the production capacity that we are not able to achieve. So we're going to work on this kind of problems where we will add a number of constraints, and we're going to see what is the solution we are able to achieve, and if we're not able to achieve, why we are not able to achieve. Those kind of things we actually work on, and we can generate a solution. So guys, if you have any questions, you can post those questions through this on my social media channels, and or you can also email. You can also email. Also email us. I'll share my details here, so you can actually connect with me. Email ID, which is krishnaidu@mathmal.com, or you can also WhatsApp me +91897794 637. Also connect with me on my Facebook page, that is Mathmal1. You can on the LinkedIn page is one. Also connect with me on my Twitter page. That is also Mathmal1, right? So the best way you can post your queries on the social media pages on which you're watching, or you can also connect with me on email ID and the WhatsApps. So guys, thank you very much for watching this video, and if you have any questions, do post your queries, and if possible, please like and share this video so that it helps other people, and can actually generate good solutions to the company. And I take my leave here, coming up with some more videos. Keep watching, keep following my page, so you can get all the updates of my live streams. Thank you very much.